Move to reconvene.
We have a motion to move to reconvene. All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you for the delicious meal. Thank you. It's always good when you're hungry.
Anytime. It's good if you're hungry.
Fist pound.
All right. We have correspondence.
People's Party Canada.
There is a request here, invitation to a meeting from the People's Party of Canada, a letter sent by Andrew Nelson. They are interested to have, obviously, as many people to that official visit as possible. So I am trying to see if any of this council would be interested to go and listen or not. In general, I have gone and listened to different politicians just for interest.
Item B.
And that's about it. So it's up to you. You decide. Okay?
That's this Friday, right?
Yep. Friday at 2 o'clock.
Yeah. So
Right in the middle of my work day.
it is something, doesn't commit nobody. 10B, Minister Rick McIver, as you could see, it deals with the issue that we raised regarding the condition of 9th Ave in town, and is in poor shape, and I hope they're starting to understand it is.
Would it be to our advantage at AUMA if we had a meeting with the minister regarding some of our problems? I know that
Okay, so which
whenever we've
problem?
gone to a minister of transportation, we have a meeting all right. It's-
But what exactly will you want to talk about? Because this one is well aware of, right?
Well,
Is there any other
to me, it
issues
was
that
sort of-
we,
To me, I'm sorry it was wishy-washy. Because we have an agreement with Alberta Transportation. They take care of 9th Avenue and the bridge, and we would do 12th Street.
okay,
It's never happened.
We've taken care of 12th Street.
Yeah.
it's South Street.
It's not a secondary highway, it's not a bypass.
We tried to give it to them, but they
Remember, at one time, we tried to swap it,
Exactly.
but the swapping is not in our favor because there is a bridge, and the
Yeah.
bridge is extremely expensive. So best not to swap anything, let them fix
Well,
their
no, but
problem.
what I'm saying is if it's their responsibility to repair that road, then,
Sure they do it.
yeah, then do it.
Okay, Councillor Selk?
So the letter from Minister McIver said that there was a meeting that was supposed to be set up from the Southern Regional Director or
Right.
representative.
Right.
And Jeff, I'm assuming nothing's happened on that front?
Mr. Tolley and Bart and whoever regional is, I don't know who that is, are just, I've left it with Bart, they're gonna meet, they've all been in contact, so it could be tomorrow for all I know.
So there is movement.
Yeah, there's an effort on all parties to find an agreeable date here.
Okay.
Jeff, they had a traffic counter out there at the end of 501 as it turns to go about 2 weeks ago. So,
Oh, it's Darren, okay, sorry, I do know Darren, but I can follow up and check, but I know they're setting a date.
Yeah, all right, so if you could keep it updated.
Yeah.
Councillor Selk?
They've been setting a date for quite a while now. So the summer's half over, and I haven't
And
seen any movement. So perhaps Bart could express the urgency of this issue.
I'll follow up in the morning.
and if we have no positive, maybe then we'll ask when we go in at the UMA, speak with them. All right, 10C, City of Edmonton Office of Traffic Safety. There's a conference there. I was wondering, is that a conference that would be interesting for Brad to go to.
I asked Brad about it. The timing's not great for him. That was the one kicker, is it was more of a timing issue. He's still going to look at it. If we can get a bit better of an agenda, we're going to look at it a little closer. I don't know why they're holding one in the summer. That seems odd to me, but yeah, he is looking at it.
All right. So 10C, Mayor Whitaker, Deputy Minister, Alberta Municipal Affairs, an annual report. Not for your information anyways. 10E, Sherry Remus, the Alzheimer's Society, a thank you letter for the support that we give that society when they hold their Alzheimer walk. It's rather amazing that a small community like ours can raise as much money as they raise. $8,600 this year. It's amazing. I went there this year representing the town and said more and more people coming to it, which is nice. And then the last one is an interesting and important one, and Jeff would like to speak to the concerns of the Bill 7 that has been put in the legislature. It's a tax issue that could become a problem in terms of pinning one community against the other in terms of opportunity. And so, Jeff, please go ahead.
Sure. This is something I would actually like to see if we can speak with the MLA SCOW about next month when he's here. And I'm not particularly opposed to the legislation, but I have some concerns, and part of it is how it's been rolled out. One is, and I've asked the people in municipal affairs who have drafted it, there is no intention of consulting with municipalities on this. They will not be. And they've said that right from the beginning. We're not asking your opinion because we're doing it. It was a campaign promise and it's happening, whether you like it or not. And I've posed a number of questions to the province about considerations because this notion of incentives has found a number of municipalities in hot legal water, even in my time with the town. Because the current act says where it is equitable, where it is deemed equitable to do so, a council may waive or defer a tax. So that's all the Act says on the matter, and it's been one of the most controversial sections of the Act in the 11 years I've worked for the town. And you've seen communities, and I forget the one, I always forget the name of it, but I have their information on this. For example, they gave an incentive to a hotel and gas station to come to their community. And it was in the final year of that council's term, and they gave them a 5-year tax exemption for both of those properties. Now, it created a large stir amongst their existing commercial district that said, that's now my competition that has a distinct advantage. They don't have to pay taxes.
Yeah.
So you take a hotel in a small town anywhere, they're paying between $25,000 and $40,000 a year in taxes, and they waived it. So the business community was upset, but then what happened is the election happened, and a whole bunch of councillors got elected with the support of the business community that said we didn't like that incentive. So the new council canceled the incentive 1 year in. It was supposed to be for 5 years. They canceled it. The developer of the gas station hotel sued the town for about $2.5 million, saying that influenced greatly my investment decision. You've changed that materially. That's going to cost me, and it's embroiled this community in a mess. And so one of the questions I posed to municipal affairs is, what protection are you giving the municipality against legal recourse? Because what a council might feel is equitable to do, a judge may not agree, or certainly those affected may not agree. And a judge may ultimately disagree as well, just because you 7 felt it was equittable.
And next council may overturn it.
And the next council may feel otherwise, right? So there's a number of these types of innuendo within the legislation. I wanted to point to a couple of things. What it's basically saying is, well, what it's exactly saying is, a council may, by bylaw, for the purposes of encouraging the development or revitalization of non-residential properties for the general benefit of the municipality, provide for full or partial exemptions from taxation under this division for non-residential property or deferrals of the collection of tax. And then it goes on to say for up to 15 years. It's an incredibly long time frame. Now, from what I understand, the intent of that, they're trying to deal with a lot of dry gas wells and a lot of some of that oil and gas development is some of the direction of this. But They're encompassing all non-residential. So while it does open up some opportunities, it's going to do a couple of things. It's going to create regional competition. So now you're going to have people coming and saying, well, I was going to locate here, this town's going to give me 5 years exemption, what can you give me? And all we're going to do is start pitting all the regional municipalities against each other. So I consider that a race to the bottom. We're all going to scramble to see who can take in less revenue. Right? So I see that as difficult or detrimental. And it's also going to start creating tax inequities within your municipality. So all that has to start being weighed out, where we're in a community where we have one of most things. So we've got multiple gas stations and hardware stores and drug stores and grocery stores. And so for us, it's even more acutely difficult to say, well, we're going to waive the tax of an industry or business that already exists in the community. We really have to weigh that question of equity and what that means. Now, for some other communities that don't have any of that, not that difficult. The whole community may be clamoring for a small general store or grocery store, and the whole community would absolutely support a deferral or a tax break for that business. No debate. Where I see an application that we can talk about down the road, and I will use PharmaSave on Main Street as an example because this came up. I drafted a tax waiver program back in 2009, specifically targeted at helping people like Kerry when he renovated the PharmaSave. So he went in and greatly expanded that facility and did a massive renovation, and his assessment went up by about 50%. Because of his capital investment. The theory behind the waiver at the time was, why don't we just continue to tax him on what he was paying before the improvement and give him a break on the improvement? Let him get cash flowing a little bit. Let him get turning some inventory in that new space and give him a couple of years to kind of catch his breath, because you're probably at that point fairly fully leveraged from a financial point of view. And when we looked at that, the ECDEV board proposed it to council. We were asked to get legal, and we went to Brownlee at the time, and Brownlee said, please don't do that. Whatever you do, don't do that. We're defending other municipalities in tax waiver recs right now. So your other drugstore is going to sue you. You know, your grocery with the pharmacy is going to sue you. And so they advised us strongly, it was unequivocal, that please do not impose a tax waiver type of program. You're going to have all kinds of troubles. So we walked away from it completely. This may open that up to do something like that, and I think your community can almost get behind the equity in that again, you're still going to continue to arrive at the same revenue you were from the property. You're just going to give them some either deferral or break to catch their financial breath after a large renovation. And statistically, most of your economic growth in a small community is coming from your existing businesses expanding. So I just saw it recently with my family at the Home Hardware. So they added 4,000 square feet onto what was only 6,000 square feet. So assessment almost doubled right at that property. So now they knew that going in. You make a business decision, you know that's happening. But so it opens up some interesting opportunities that we can wade carefully into. But I am concerned. I went to a meeting with the Local Government Administrators Association last week at Old Man River, and the person from Municipal Affairs that wrote it was there. And I said, why aren't you asking for consultation? They said, because it was a campaign piece, you could have given us your input when you heard the campaign promise. I said, I've never heard about it until now. I keep reasonably abreast of what the campaign was doing. I've never heard about it. He said, no, there's 7 items we're not getting consultation on. It's just happening. And I said, well, did you consider, for example, the Northwest Trade Partnership, which is federal legislation, or at least tri-party provincial legislation, doesn't allow for incentives? He's like, we're told it's fine. I said, but how do I be compliant with one and not the other? How do I do that? Like, how do I juggle that as a municipality? Well, we don't know. And I just wish, from my point of view, there was a little consultation on this. I think it's going through either way, and we'll deal with it. But the lawyers are going to do very well with this legislation, is my first thought. They're going to do very well.
Councillor Bengry.
Comments is, Councillor Barnes and myself went to a Brownlee, and they discussed this adamantly. But my concern is also, is it going to take businesses off of our main street and put them into home businesses?
Well, it's not going to change their tax implication at all for existing businesses. Their tax implication stays exactly the same. All this is saying is you would, if you had an equitable reason to do so, defer or waive taxes for a business. But I don't know what that looks like, because every scenario is going to be completely different.
See, City of Calgary is weighing them out right now.
Well, the city of Calgary has a massive other problem in their non-residential taxation.
Yeah.
That, those have just escalated at an unreasonable rate in Calgary. So they're looking for relief is what they're looking for.
On Main Street.
Yeah,
Yeah, and actually theirs is unique because they're not looking to defer taxes. They're literally giving checks back from taxes collected.
right.
Exactly.
But
Right,
there is a
it's-
lot of
Fill in their offices.
often oil wells and stuff like that. That is really what was the prime target of that legislation, except it has become so broad in its application that is causing new area of concern for municipalities.
So I think just something to keep in mind if council feels, and you may not share my opinion, I think there's some opportunity here. And what it does is it clarifies the vague sections in the MGA that have been the cause of a lot of problems over the years. So it's elaborating greatly on those, which is good. It's going to clarify, take some ambiguity out. But I wish there was a little bit of consultation on it because, yes, it can also work well for the downtown high-rises in Calgary that are 40% empty. That could be a good thing for them. But I don't want to see us getting into these race-to-the-bottom bidding wars with Fort McLeod.
That's right.
I don't want to see that happening on this region, and it makes this dynamic in Rita's, South Grown Alberta Southwest, it makes this dynamic even more interesting, more complex. Because now we're jointly hiring someone to promote the region, and now every individual within that region is trying to create a strategic tax competitive advantage, where before we really couldn't. We kind of all had to play on the same field, and now we don't. And I'm curious what it's going to do to the structure of Rita's. It might just blow them up, frankly. But I don't know.
Councillor Selk, that is a good point to bring up at your next meeting. Council, there is something here that Jeff is alluding to is what had been done in the past, and he had a draft kind of bylaw that was done. Would you be interested to see that brought back to a future meeting, considering that legislation, like it or not, is going to be a legislation that we have to live by? Is that something that you would be interested to see and at least discuss?
I think if Brownlee probably gets a hold of this, they'll have a complete session.
Well, there's a part of me that says, let's let a couple other people get sued and then see how we go, because
Yeah.
it's inevitable. I don't know that we need to be the first. So I would
Yes.
put pretty good money on it that it's the topic of every legal session this fall.
Yes.
I'd be
So-
almost sure that's what it's going to be.
Maybe when we have our session as council in the fall,
Our
maybe
planning
you
session.
could kind of bring it over and we could kind of look at it.
I'd be almost
That's fine.
confident it's going to be one of your AUMA sessions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure it is. The interpretation's still pretty broad,
right.
and it's
But
got
the
a lot of-
legal aspect is yet to be sorted out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
thank
So thank you so much for that update. It's really good. So that concludes the open session of our council meeting. We have some confidential items that we need to deal with regarding Community Futures representative recommendation under FOIP 174F and employment contract proposal FOIP 161B1. Okay?
Move to go in closed session.
And the land negotiation.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Under FOIP 161C1. Councillor Barnes?
Move to go into closed session.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you to the media. I need to sign a few papers.
So Mayor, are you and I